So I'm not a model railway guy, not yet, but I was browsing Temu for bargains, as you do, and I came across these little plastic buildings that were labelled 1 to 150 scale. And the more I looked, the more I found. And it turns out there's a stack of these little buildings that you can get to put together. In fact, it turns out that N-gauge railway modelers work between 148, 1 to 148 and 1 to 160 scale. And these were 1 to 150. So I picked up a few and they arrived not long ago. So I'm going to see how we get on with building them and painting one. That really doesn't feel like an exciting hook. Am I losing my edge? Did I have an edge to begin with? Let's just do the logo thing. So this is how they arrive. Little plastic envelopes, no instructions, just a you figure it out, you're the modeler type approach, which I guess adds to the fun. There's a bit of laziness to it, to be honest, and some of the listings do have images with some light instructions, but I also like that they're confident in my ability to handle it, like someone who's learned their craft, and who the hell needs those crappy instructions anyway, right? How badly can it go? It's like 4 walls, a base and a roof. Now, I know what you're probably not thinking. This shit could be alright for Legions Imperialis, that small scale Warhammer game based in the 30k universe. Well, I did a bit of digging and that looks to be about 9mm scale. Epic 40k, the dead old one, used to be 6mm, but now the Legion stuff is 9 or 10mm scale now, which equates to about 1 to 160. So happy days, we're bang on here. You get enough of these and you've got yourself a soulless downtown city area to have your big baby titans wander about in. So the majority of these are pretty easy to slot together, plenty of simple panels, and it's often quite clear which way round the panels go because one side tends to be scored or patterned, while the other tends to be fairly blank. Some of the larger kits come with a little sheet of flimsy plastic which you can cut out for window panels, which is great if you're into that. I've left mine off for now, but it might be that there are large areas I want to look like sort of smoked glass or something like that, and we can try that easily enough. All the parts have little nubs that fit into holes. Generally they hold together reasonably well without glue, but I'd suggest glue if you're planning on making terrain with these, since a sharp knock and they might start coming apart, and there are some bits that will need to be glued on, like 1 or 2 flat panels designed to just sit flush on top of the others. Part of me wonders if this is a small child discovers biscuits type situation where everyone else has been in on this stuff for ages now and I'm all like, oh holy shit guys, this is amazing, and all the N-gauge train modelers are like, yeah well done bud, you've discovered something we've had for literally decades. But if you're like me and you were basically a Warhammer guy before expanding into other models and stuff, then maybe this is also new for you too, and we can start the hey it's new for us so don't shit on our parade club, and I'll be the club president and you can be the first lady, and we'll do a newsletter, and each month it'll be about all stuff that everybody knows about that we're discovering for the first time ever and pretending like it's this new thing that nobody knows about, like using oils for weathering or painting with a makeup sponge. And we can have an annual conference and have loads of people turn up and say things like, we told you about this years ago, and what do you mean you've never heard of matte medium? Anyway, tickets for Late to the Party Expo 2026 have gone on sale already and sold out, so you won't be able to get any, but just turn up and we'll see how it goes. I ended up picking one of the buildings and I figured I'd have a go at painting it up in sort of an abandoned style. Now because the plastic is quite light and there are holes in the windows, it made sense to spray the insides black before sticking it together. So my go-to primer these days is Mr. Finishing Surfacer 1500, and after that I was able to stick it together with super glue. I wasn't convinced plastic cement would do the trick, with this being quite hard plastic, but listen, it might have. If in doubt though, I just run with super glue a lot of the time anyway. You can see my setup for super glue here. I have an old blister plaque I have an old blister pack tray which I have cut out, which I kind of decant the super glue into and then use a cocktail stick to dab that glue onto the model wherever I need it, and this gives me much more control over the placement. I had to do a little cleanup on the awning type piece here since it was kind of scratchy and had lots of, like, I guess flashing or just marks from where it was presumably stamped or cut out of the plastic sheet. And then once that was all glued together, I figured I would let it dry, and while that was happening I thought, hey, maybe I'll just throw the rest of these together and show you the variation. So there are a number of these things and they're all just a few quid a pop. Some are taller, some are shorter, some come with fancy bits. I've tried to link a stack of them in the description below the video, but if any of you have used Temu before, you know that if you even think about looking at just one of these, you'll end up getting shed loads of them spammed at you across the app as soon as you do, so I'm not really worried about you finding these. They even do ruined ones with cracks and wall parts missing and stuff, but I actually didn't pick any of them up, so don't know why I mentioned it. The variety is actually really useful since you could probably quite comfortably build a pretty sweet downtown area without too much repetition. I'm also pretty sure I saw the same kit stores making streets, and you could probably go to town with little lampposts and rubble and all sorts of stuffs. Anyway, you can see that there are stacks of them. Some go together very easily, some require a little more thinking, some have bits that need glued on, while others generally tend to clip together well enough to kind of stay up. So back to our glued building. Once it was all solid and the glue had dried, I took it out back and primed it in standard grey from Colourforge. Basically Mechanicus standard grey from Citadel, but slightly cheaper, or you get more in the can. Grey made sense because, you know, concrete. Now you'll notice at this point my cutting mat changes back to the grey one that I used to use, reason being the black one was kind of annoying me. I didn't like how contrasty it was and I thought black would be easier on my eyes, but alas it wasn't. Grey is the one. There's also been a good few days, oh my god, there's also been a good few days gap between the last shots and this one, since I had the building sitting for ages and just wasn't sure how to approach it. Anyway, I felt like it was time I tackled the painting part, so I got to work with my dry brush. Dark grey first, just to get everything covered and to obscure some of the primer. It probably looks like there's not much going on here, but I feel like with every layer you're kind of building up texture, and there were some parts that didn't really have a strong coat of primer, so this kind of covered those up. I went up a tone on the grey next and I set about stippling this in most areas. Again, this was just building texture all over the building. From there I took neutral grey, yes, another grey, and I worked that over concentrating on less areas and more of the higher up areas. I didn't go quite all the way to the ground everywhere since there often tends to be darker kind of grime and stuff closer to street level. From there I thought, well, I've not really used enough grey, so I went with a lighter pale grey and I started putting marks on the edges as well as sort of vertical texture on the wall panels. Now this wasn't really a slap it everywhere approach, and it was more about creating a bit of visual interest and catching some of those upward facing edges. Then we went right back down the value scale to German grey for a darker shade, and again creating visual interest in areas that could have got dirty as well as where damp and drips might have collected, and this kind of got dry brushed all around. I also did a fair bit of stippling this into the grimy street level areas. With much of this, it is a bit of trial and error. I actually thought I'd end up using this dark grey going upwards from the windows like it had been burnt out, but it ended up working more like streaks of dirt. For the first non-grey colour, I went with Rattling Grime, which is a contrast paint, but I watered it down a bit in order to start doing more streaks and dirty patches. Now this was pulled down from the windows, it was added to window ledges, put into cracks and panel lines, and generally again just working my way around dirtying things up a bit. Olive green was up next, and this is where things start to come to life a bit. I made a wash consistency with plenty of water so that I didn't end up overdoing this. And then I went round again adding green in areas where there would be staining or moss build up. Window ledges, down walls where water might be running, on some flat areas where there would be growth, and so on. Trying to keep this natural looking and not too regular was a bit of a challenge. Now at this point, you could take it so much further with rubble, flock, more tones, lots more detail and different colours. You could do weathering, you could paint the doors, you could paint window frames and all sorts. But the reality is I was looking for a reasonably quick effect, so the last thing I decided to do was a little bit of graffiti. So I went for a darkish red and black plus some light almost white for kind of marker work like tags, and I was just kind of winging it here on one side. You could also do this all the way around and get super creative with it, but remember, you'd only get graffiti where people can generally reach, so I was wary of doing this higher than the ground floor, and my thought is maybe the side of the building is part of an alleyway, something like that, that's a little bit more sheltered. So there you have it. It's a few quid on Temu. It's birthed an abandoned city. I think there's loads of scope for these little guys since they're reasonably plain, so they can be added as you wish to with like greebles or painted on effects. And if you get sick of the absolute nonsense levels of detail on your Warhammer minis, then this is a nice change of pace and scale. I, for one, would love to see your take on these and what you end up doing. I can see scope for like abandoned desert city, somewhere like the UAE, or an overgrown Tokyo, even a sort of cyberpunk approach with neon lights. Why not give it a go? Thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff. You can join me on Discord, or you can support me by grabbing me a paint on Coffee. That is linked in the description. And until next time, goodbye.